So we're leaving India. We'll probably be back to India at some point because they do have a lot of like cool mythology. It's just it's the language barrier. I just can't pronounce that stuff, and I don't like to give foreign places nicknames like Patahamatata Castle. We'll just call it Patty. I don't like to do that. But anyways, so we're off. Now, we're going from India and the legends involving that to Africa, modern day Africa. Now we're in the Congo. Now this is an interesting story because this just popped up in the news. They're having an Ebola outbreak again. It's not just any Ebola outbreak. This is the second biggest Ebola outbreak in history. Now, they've had them and it's been fairly restricted to villages. And they go, okay, and that's not like a good thing. Not like, yay, just villages. But it could have been a lot worse. And the problem is that we might be there now. Because they have this city, it's called Butembo in the Congo, and it has it's a city. It has a population of over 1 million people, and Ebola has not hit a major city yet. And we're starting to see outbreaks in the suburbs and in outlying communities. Ebola, if you don't know, is incredibly contagious and has a kill rate between 50% and 90%. It can be transmitted through a drop of sweat or blood. So people riding on the subway that are sweaty, you just want to stay away from them anyways, but they're like shaking their head like a dog. It's flying everywhere. It's like Beethoven, but Ebola infected. And it can take up to 9 days before you start to become symptomatic. So you can have it and spread it and not know it. And then you start pooping out blood. Basically, you liquefy from the inside out. That's what ends up killing you. You'll start to get like, some people get rashes, some people get bloodshot eyes, some people, it starts off with confusion and things like that, but the end result that will kill you is massive blood loss. Your organs liquefy, and then you throw up and you poop out blood until you die. It's very brutal. I've seen some photos of people dying from it. They're alive. I saw a photo of a guy sitting in the middle of a street and just blood all on the ground underneath his butt. He's laying down. He's sitting. But you just see a puddle of blood because he's pooping out blood and he's reaching out for help. And everyone else in the photo has given him like a 10-foot radius because he's dead. There's nothing you can do. And part of the problem is not only is Ebola highly contagious, but the burial rituals in the Congo and in other regions of this area, they require the people to clean the body, to wash the bodies off. And if they're a very famous person, sometimes you'll lay on the body and be like, oh yeah, Elvis, such great music, let me lay on your body, which gives you Ebola. And then you die, and then your loved ones wash your body, clean your body, things like that. I read an interesting article where the person says, imagine having a millennial-old tradition, and all of a sudden, a couple guys show up in hazmat suits and say, just throw it in a bag and burn it. And that's the problem they're having over in these regions. They've been having these burial practices for hundreds of years, and now people are showing up in pretty much spacesuits saying, no, can't say goodbye, just throw it in a bag. That's it. Can't touch it. Now it's hitting a city. Like I said, it's on the outskirts. It hasn't gotten to the main part of town, but it seems like it's only a matter of time. And here's the problem. Merck, the group that makes the Ebola, it's an experimental Ebola vaccine, so they're not entirely for sure that it works. They're pretty sure that it works. They give it to people, and it seems to work, but they've only dealt with basic, quote-unquote, minor outbreaks. The biggest outbreak was around 11,000 people. So they go, okay, well, let's stockpile 300,000 doses of this vaccine. It takes months to prepare. But they go 300,000, that's a good starting point. But with over 1 million people in the city, that's not even half that can be vaccinated from this. You could have a city full of skyscrapers and restaurants and coffee shops and skate parks awash in blood by next summer. It would be like a zombie movie. And the weirdest part about this vaccine, and they don't know what they're going to do. Merck has said, we don't know if we can have enough vaccines ready to go. And another thing with this outbreak is people are coming down with Ebola and they don't know where they got it from. Normally you would have like one person go like, well, yeah, I was holding hands with that dude, And that's how I got Ebola. But now people are showing up and they're like, well, do you know anyone who died of Ebola? And they're like, no, I don't know anyone who died of Ebola. So it may already getting spread in that droplet form. All it takes too, I mean, this was the big controversy a couple of years ago, is it takes 9 days someone get on a plane and go to another country. But they don't have enough vaccines to inoculate an entire city. They don't know how some people are catching it, which is very worrying. But the vaccine, I remember reading about this a couple of years ago, the vaccine itself. So Merck is a company, and a company's goal is to make profit. Companies tend to have secondary goals. Walmart's goal is to make profit. And Sam Walton's goal, at least, you can argue whether or not Walmart's still about it, but Sam Walton's goal was to give customers low-price items. That was, I mean, he wanted to make money and keep the company going, but his secondary goal was to allow people to buy stuff at the lowest price possible. That's an admirable goal. Merck, their main goal is to make money, and their secondary goal is to help people. But when you come, and most corporations are like that. Amazon's like, hey, we want you to have access to all the entertainment you want to, but, you know, we also, our main goal is to make money. That's a little capitalism side note there. Merck said, listen, we can make this Ebola vaccine, but the truth of the matter is that Ebola is quite rare. So the amount of money that we put into making this vaccine, we have to recoup. Not just the research and development, but the producing the actual physical vaccine itself. It's quite rare. It'll take us forever to recoup a profit from making this. And then some genius there, probably Max Brooks or George Romero, said, you know what else is rare that we have a vaccine for that we can stockpile, but it's so rare it doesn't really make it cost effective for us to make all this vaccine for? And we can combine them together. And they're like, yes, Mr. Romero, what's your suggestion? And he goes, rabies. Rabies is a vaccine that is needed, that we have, but it doesn't make sense for us to make a separate rabies vaccine. What if we took, this is 100% true, what if we took the rabies vaccine and the Ebola vaccine, combined them into a single vaccine, so we can give it to either person? People are like, yay, clapping, having no... You ever wonder why people in zombie movies act like they've never seen a zombie movie? Because people in our planet act like they've never seen a zombie movie. Why would you invent something? Because remember, a vaccine tends to have a element of the disease in the vaccine. That might not hold true across all vaccines, but like the flu vaccine, they're like, oh yeah, it has a little bit of the flu vaccine. You might get sick, you might find a little... You're gonna give me rabies if I have Ebola? Or if I have rabies, you're gonna inject me with something that has Ebola in it? You've basically created a crazy, blood-spewing monster who's just gonna run around spitting blood at everybody and doesn't care because he has rabies. Why would you combine those two? Why don't you combine Ebola and, like, I don't know, antidepressant medicine or something that makes you sleepy? Anything else? I guess people who have depression don't want to be injected full of Ebola, but those are the two, that's like at the beginning of I Am Legend, the movie. They invent the cure for cancer and it turns everyone into a vampire. I don't know if I would take that vaccine. And I don't know if I would hang out with anybody who took that vaccine. Because again, you've now created a crazy, 28 days later, rage-infected monster. No! Put something else in that vaccine, Merck. But 300,000 doses of that rabies/Ebola vaccine is on its way to a major city in Africa. That was a clip from our daily podcast, Dead Rabbit Radio. Dead Rabbit Radio is available anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime news. If you want to hear the full episode that this clip came from, check the link below. Please like and subscribe. And hit that little bell, too. That does some magical stuff. Thanks, guys.